It is NFL playoff time. We are excited to talk DFS. The regular season might be over, but the DFS season still goes strong. All coming up next on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Happy Friday morning, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, the Friday DFS version. I am Scott Jenstad, joined as always on Friday mornings by Ryan Belongia. If you could please rate or review the podcast, it does help us out a lot. I know I say that 9 million times, but it does matter. It helps people find the podcast, etc. Ryan, we've made it to playoff time, best time of the NFL season. I know a lot of people like draft time and regular fantasy football. I'm a huge playoff guy. I love the standalone games. I love almost every game. There might be a couple in the slate that aren't great, but we're doing a little differently. We're going to do kind of how all the DFS providers are doing it. You know, Fanduel, Draftkings, Yahoo, kind of split it by Saturday and Sunday. So we're going to talk the Saturday slate the first half, the Sunday slate the second half. So I know usually we just hit a kind of big Sunday slate. We'll kind of break this down into two smaller states rather than doing the whole thing together. I think it's a little more useful that way for everybody that's playing. But Ryan, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. Yeah, I love the playoffs. Drafted a bunch of playoff best ball teams this week.
Nice.
Had a really good week. The last week of the regular season last Sunday. Finally, it had been a few weeks, so it was nice to end on a high note.
I can't remember last week. Who was huge for you?
It was really all it took was fading Pierre Strong. He ended up being about 60% owned in a lot of the stuff. He ended up being the highest owned running back, which was crazy. And all you had to do was pair Jefferson with CeeDee Lamb. Both of them scored 40 points or something. Really, it was as simple as that. My lineups weren't even great, but I just cashed everything with that combination. That's
awesome. That's a good way to end the year. I had Jefferson, but I didn't have Lamb. I had to go back and look. I think it was kind of in the middle, but Jefferson was obviously huge there. But let's do. We'll split it up. I think it just makes more sense. We'll do the 2 Saturday games. Take a breath and do the 3 Sunday games. Kind of good to leave the Monday one out. There's just so much up in the air with Philly still. I mean, they're still 3 days away from their game. We don't know if AJ Brown's playing. We think Jalen Hurts is playing, but he's not really. You know, he said he hasn't done much with his finger. I think it's probably a good thing. That's gonna be a wait for news game because they have such a narrow passing tree with Brown and Smith and Goddard that if anybody's out, that opens up some interesting names there. But let's look at Saturday first. We have the game that was pretty much guaranteed to be the early Saturday game, Cleveland at Houston. TV wise, I think that was the easy one that was going to be first. Cleveland is on the road, -2, over under of 44.5 in that game. And then the night game, we have Miami at Kansas City. Everybody's been talking about the weather here. There's some rumors of -30 wind chill. Kansas City's favored by 4.5. Over unders 43.5. You know, if you told me Miami and Kansas City were playing 6 weeks ago, I'd be like, it's over unders going to be 52, 53. A little bit of offense is struggling. A little bit of weather there. We're down to a 43.5. Most importantly, I think we talk about the -30 wind chill. It seems like that'd be a miserable place to be as a fan, to be honest.
Yeah, glad I'm not going to be in Kansas City for that game. Much rather just stay home and watch it on the couch, right?
Yeah, no doubt there. I'm obviously soft California. You're a tough Midwesterner, so you probably would deal with it better than I would. I think I'd have a tough time with it. The cool I could do, the snow I could do, the wind is what really makes it nasty and tough. But let's hit that first game first. We got Cleveland at Houston. It's a game where the teams played earlier. Both these games on Saturday, the teams played earlier this year. Cleveland won 36-22 in December, but we're up 36-7 with 12 minutes left in that game. But no C.J. Stroud, no Will Anderson, no Grenard. So both their pass rushes were out for Houston. So I think you can't fully toss that game out, but you can kind of toss that game out. You know, no C.J. Stroud is a completely different monster, obviously, for Cleveland. I think they had Case Keenum playing, and then Davis Mills came in later in the game. Houston averaged 5.6 yard per play in the season with C.J. Stroud, 3.9 without. So that kind of tells you everything right there. Closest spread of the weekend. This is the closest game, Vegas spread-wise. Just looking at the stats, Cleveland is ranked pretty poorly on offense, really well on defense, looking at DVOA. Houston's kind of in the middle of both of those stats. What are you thinking about this game? What are you thinking about totals? How do you feel about Cleveland-Houston?
I really like this game. I really like this slate, mostly because I just have a clear idea of what I want to do. You mentioned it. The first thing that stuck out was the 43.5 total for the Chiefs game. You would expect that to be over 50.
Yeah.
It's clear that there's going to be some elements that are going to hurt the offenses. You said below 0, probably, it doesn't seem like the game's going to shoot out.
So just about the weather, my question, like, I think that if it gets like 10 degrees, like, I think that really hurts Miami and helps Kansas City because they can be fine in that. I just wonder if it's actually this windy, if it's actually this much wind chill, if it's actually this cold, if it kind of just screws both teams.
Yeah, it does. I mean, nobody likes to play in that. You figure, it's just going to be a slower, grinded out game. Both teams will try to run the ball first. Even in good weather, neither of these quarterbacks, Mahomes or Tua, have been putting up a lot of ceiling games this season.
Yeah.
I just looked at the slate and I thought even if all the quarterbacks were the same price, I'd want to play Joe Flacco, and he happens to be much cheaper than the rest of them. How crazy is that? Joe Flacco on a playoff slate, and he's the quarterback that I want to play. But he's been great. The matchup against Houston's pretty good.
Yep.
Will Anderson, he looked pretty banged up last week. They have some other injuries. Can't really see them being healthy. Their run defense is pretty good, but their pass defense struggled this season. Amari just had 265 yards against them or something crazy.
Yep.
And Njoku's turned into a star with Flacco. I mean, if you look at the games, every game Flacco has started, he's been great. Over 22 fantasy points in all of them. Mahomes, on the other hand, he's put up more than 22 fantasy points twice all season. Flacco's doing it every game, and he gets a dome matchup here where Mahomes and Tua are playing in frigid temperatures. I mean, it just seems like a really easy decision for me to play Flacco. I mean, I love Stroud too. It's a tougher matchup.
Yeah.
But love Stroud. He was great that last week, made some incredible throws again. So I think that's I'll consider him for tournaments, but I think it's easy. Just Joe Flacco and cash.
It was so funny. We were watching Houston at my house, and I was telling my wife, she's a fan, but doesn't know everybody. But I was like, CJ Stroud, number 2 pick. This kid's really awesome. And the next play, he threw the long touchdown to Nico Collins, and she thought I was a genius for 3 minutes. It was beautiful. It doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, it sounds like I know what I'm talking about. So it's always nice when things work out that way. But before we get into the fully players, Miami KC, just some stats here. We mentioned the cold. These teams did play earlier too. KC won 21-14 in Europe in week 9. So, there's some weird elements there, but they did win that game. Looking at overall stats, looking at DVOA, Miami is second in offense, so really good there, but 19th in defense. KC's top 10 in both. I know that people think their offense has been really bad, but they're 8th in offense, so not normal KC, but not the Jets either by any means. Then they're 7th in defense, but their defense has been good all year. Interesting matchup because it's just, you expect the superior offense to be KC. It's not in this case, but Miami is so banged up. It's just it's the obvious big name guys like Waddle and Mostert are both questionable. I assume they're both going to play, but, it's just, they're so banged up. They've lost so many offensive linemen. Kyle Van Noy, I think, is out. No, Van Ginkel's out now. I always mix those up. Van Ginkel's out. They're missing a bunch of guys. It's just, I wish these teams were healthy because I really like Miami's chances to win this game if they were, but Miami is just so banged up. I just wonder if they can. I wonder if they can function with the number of guys they're missing because it's a shame because I think they're early in the year they were a really fun and good team. They've got killed by injuries.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's unfortunate they have that. I forget that their edge rusher who went out a couple weeks ago.
Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. They're both out. It's
both of them,
crazy.
and
yeah.
I don't know. I haven't heard about Xavier Howard. Is he still out too? I
have to look, but yeah, I know Phillips. I mean, Chubb was playing really well too. Chubb was playing probably the best football yet of his career. He was looking really good, and then it sucks that he got hurt.
Right. So yeah, I'm with you. I think
Xavier Howard's out. Just confirming that.
Yeah, I mean they have so many injuries. It looks like they're going to struggle here. I don't know. I kind of like KC. KC's got a good defense. They could control that game with Pacheco and maybe some short passes to Kelsey.
Yeah, I think it's. I really wish that was more of a high flying matchup, but it makes things interesting. But let's get into specific players. That's what we're here for. Let's talk about that. But first, a note from our sponsors at Circa. Get ready for the ultimate big game parties at Circa Resort and Casino. Super Sundays in Las Vegas this year. Watch the big game poolside and Stadium Swim's big game viewing party. Massive screen, booming game sound, and view of the pyrotechnic and visual effects throughout the game. Snag the best seat in the sun with day beds, poolside boxes, cabanas, and more, or touchdown at the world's largest sportsbook, Circa Sports, for the Big Game Bash. 3 stories of football glory featuring a 78 million pixel screen. Book your seat with variety of reservation options, including bottle service, open bar, stadium-style food, and more. Don't miss these legendary viewing experiences on February 11th. The Big Game Parties only at the Circa Resort and Casino. Reserve today at circalasvegas.com. So, Ryan, you mentioned quarterback. We'll start there. We've got Flacco, Mahomes, Tua, and CJ Stroud. Mahomes is 7,100, Tua 7,000, Stroud 6,800, Flacco is 6,100. You said earlier if they're the same price, you'd probably go Flacco. I assume you're going Flacco there. FanDuel's interesting. FanDuel's different. FanDuel, Mahomes is 8,000 and Flacco is 7,800. So it becomes much more of a difficult question there. But on DraftKings, Flacco's 6,100. My question for you is, I know you like him the most. Is everybody liking the most? Or are people going to be like, I don't know if I want to play Flacco in a playoff game?
Yeah, I think there'll be some of that. I don't know if I want to play Flacco in a playoff game, especially when he's going to be popular.
Yeah.
I still think he'll end up being the most popular.
Are we talking like way most popular, you think? Or just like, yeah, they're kind of split, but he's the most popular, but not like insane numbers?
Yeah, not like insane numbers. Like the one I'm looking at right now has maybe Flacco in the 30s, okay, Mahomes around 30, and then Stroud, and then nobody's going to play Tua.
Like no one's playing Tua in this weather, right?
Nobody's playing Tua. I mean, he might be less than 10% owned. I mean, if so.
So just really strategy-wise in a 2-game slate, does that make you realize that you want to play some of them, or is that like you're just like, I don't want to play him in this weather?
Yeah, I really don't want to play him in that weather. But
Casey's good. Casey's good pass D too. They're 5th in pass DVOA. He has not put up huge stats lately. If he gets Waddle and Tyreek back, maybe. But yeah, it's hard to get to a path to play him.
It is. Have some interest in Tyreek because he's going to be lower owned too. But I don't think you necessarily need to pair him with Tua.
It seems to be like as we get into the slate, there are not. Like the most expensive running back is 6,800. It's not like the other slate. The Sunday slate we'll get to. There's a lot of big name receivers. There's a lot of expensive guys. Here, there's Tyreek's the only receiver over 7,000. No, you could pretty much on this slate, like overall, pretty much play whoever you want, right?
Well, yeah, it is. It's much easier in that sense than the other slate. Yeah. But
you got to pick the right players. But I think that salary you can figure out to play almost whoever you want.
Yeah, really. I guess the toughest decision will be at receiver, whether you want to play Tyreek, like which one of, I mean, we'll get there, but Amari, Collins, and Rice are all similarly priced.
Yeah, that mid-range receiver gets interesting there, but I think I agree with you.
Sorry, about FanDuel, I would just play Mahomes just since they're so closely priced. Mahomes has some rushing upside as well, just projected for more raw points, and he'll be more popular. So yeah, I would go Mahomes over there.
That was my thought too. Like I think that the 1,000 on DraftKings makes a big difference. The same price, I think I'd click Mahomes also, and just hope that the weather's cold, but maybe it's not as windy as they hope. And I think that you can get some good Mahomes there. But I mean, you mentioned Flacco. I mean, Houston stops the run really well. They did not stop the pass very well. 23rd in pass DVOA. You mentioned the previous game with Amari having 265 yards. Flacco had 368, 3 touchdowns in that game. Obviously, it goes along with the receiver, but Houston's top 2 pass rushers were out, but man, they stopping the passes where they're a little bit weak. I think that kind of middle of the field, deep shots, they just struggle against like explosive plays. I think Njoku and Amari Cooper make a lot of sense this week. I think both are going to have good games. The Browns are throwing 65% of early downs with Flacco as quarterback, which is the highest in the league. 25% of their runs go for negative yardage since Nick Chubb went out, which is crazy. It just lines up to like it makes sense, and Stefanski's leaning into it. They're just throwing the ball a ton.
Yeah, Flacco's thrown for 300 plus in 4 straight games, and he's made it look he's looked good doing it. Like it hasn't looked fluky.
Yeah. He's going to throw some picks, which is when we talk defense in a second, like he's going to make some mistakes. I think the path to Houston winning this game is like you as you look at the box score at the end, it's like a game where Flacco throws 3 interceptions and they fumble once, something like that. I think their defense is clearly the strongest unit of the 4 in this game. I think Flacco's got to turn it over for them for Houston to win the game. Real quick before we go to other positions, talk to me about CJ Stroud. Really tough matchup. But indoors, he's obviously been really good all year long. He looked pretty good last week. I think he was 264 and 2 touchdowns last week. But Cleveland's second NFL defense, second pass DVOA. They're going to get after Stroud. They're going to make him get off his spot. They're going to rush him hard. They're going to blitz. Do you find yourself playing Stroud at all?
I think I will have some Stroud in tournaments. I don't love it, but the argument is, it's just sort of a bet on talent thing. And then he really only has to beat one player. I mean, not really, but he really only has to beat Flacco. Let's just figure that Tua and Mahomes, that game's lower scoring. Both of them score under 20 fantasy points. So really it's just, who's going to score more, Stroud or Flacco.
Yeah.
Houston can win this game.
Sure.
Even if they lose this game, say, Ford and Kareem Hunt run a couple touchdowns in and the Texans are playing from behind all game. So yeah, I do have some interest in Stroud. It's a very tough matchup though.
Yeah, kind of a fun game though. Like I think that everybody's like, "Oh, this is the Saturday morning game," but I think it's a game I want to watch. I think it has some interesting aspects. You get Flacco and Stroud, like completely different ends of the career spectrum. I think it'll be a lot of fun there. What about running backs on this slate? Devin Achane is 6,800. We think Mostert's going to play, but how much, how well, etc., is kind of up in the air, especially when you get him in the cold. Isaiah Pacheco, 6,400. I assume everybody will just have Isaiah Pacheco. It's kind of the way I went into this. And then you've got so that's the Miami KC. In the other game, you got Singletary's 5,700, Jerome Ford 5,500, Kareem Hunt 4,700. This is a 2-game slate, so kind of everybody's live is kind of the way you go there. But I assume Achane Pacheco will be the 2 running backs on a ton of teams.
Yeah, I think so too. Pacheco for sure. He's kind of just like a no-brainer, especially for cash games. I'm seeing Devin Singletary next.
Okay. All right.
I think it's really just because he projects for more touches than the rest of the running backs. Cleveland have 2 and Miami have 2 with Mostert back.
Singletary's averaging 20 touches a game the last 9 games. They've really used him a ton.
Yeah, and you'd think he's going to be involved heavily in the game plan again to deal with Myles Garrett and that defense. Teams have had some rushing success at times against Cleveland, and Singletary is live to catch a few passes as well. So I think people will feel comfortable with him and Pacheco in cash games. I think you're right. From the Miami side, Achane will be considerably more popular than Mostert. Pretty much nobody's going to play Mostert on this slate, so that's a GPP option if somebody wants to take a chance. I like Ford. I think he has, he could score 2 touchdowns in this spot. He caught 2 touchdowns from Flacco in their last game in week 17. He's been involved in the passing game. I think he has upside for 5,500. So yeah, but Pacheco for sure, and then sort of decide after that.
I really like Achane this week. I think Mike McDaniel is really smart. I think the path for Miami competing in this game is running the ball. We talked about how good Kansas City's rush offense is. Their pass defense is. Their rush defense is bad. It's 27th in the NFL if you look at DVOA, whereas their pass defense is really good. The one advantage Miami has in this game is their run offense against Miami's run defense, and I'm sure Andy Reid will know that. I'm sure Spagnuolo will know that. They're gonna figure that out. But with Waddle's healthy and you've got Waddle and Tyreek, you have to play the pass. I think the way for Miami to win this game, stay in this game, is run the ball. Achane's stats are crazy. He only had 103 carries in the year, but 800 yards. That's a 7.8 yards per carry, which is a insane bonkers number. That's like the double of some guys. I know that they use him in different ways, but like that's a crazy number. He's explosive. I think if they're gonna stick in this game, he's got to hit 1, 2, maybe 3 big plays, some big chunk plays. I really like Achane. I think that him against the Kansas City rush D is the one advantage Miami has in this game.
Yeah, I really like that call. You sold me. I think he's going to end up coming in as like the 4th most popular too. I think you'll end up seeing Ford more popular because of the price. Singletary and Pacheco for sure. So yeah, I think that's a really good angle on this slate. I don't think he'll end up being crazy popular.
Yeah, not being crazy popular makes me like him even more. I really like. I think that's just the way. Obviously they get down deep, but I think the way this game's going to work with how cold it is, I don't think I'd be surprised if it was a blowout unless you get some turnovers and that kind of stuff. I just think McDaniel has to lean in the run game. He knows if I know the stats, I promise you he knows the stats times 10. Like, they're way smarter than we are. I think he has to try and exploit that, at least to start the game. I think that's his one advantage. But what about receivers? You mentioned kind of the big question on this slate is whether or not you play Tyreek. He's 8,700 on DraftKings. And then everybody else is in the mid-range. Nico Collins, 7,000. Amari, 6,800. Rashee Rice, 66. Waddle, 65. Then you jump down to some cheaper guys. We'll hit to in a second. But are you leaning towards playing Tyreek? Could you find yourself easily getting him in the lineup? I guess if you play Achane and Pacheco, it gets a little tougher. If you play Mahomes, obviously it gets even tougher. But if you play Flacco, you can do it. What is your feeling on how Tyreek plays? He was 8 for 62 on 10 targets against Kansas City last game. They played him really well. But, tough matchup, but it's the guy that led the NFL in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. So, sometimes matchup may not matter there.
Yeah, I don't think I'd get there in cash games.
Okay. Do you find yourself playing less cash games on a short slate, or how do you kind of work your what you play there?
That's a good question. There aren't as many offered, so yeah, it will be less. But I made a point to play some because I do think there's some edge on this slate. But yeah, it will be a little less. Anyways, for tournaments though, and for tournaments, I like Tyreek because I think that those 3 mid-range wide receivers are all going to be more popular than him. Actually, I know that they all are going to be more popular. Amari, Collins, and Rashee Rice. And you don't really get a lot of opportunities on 2-game slates where Tyreek Hill isn't chalk. So, even though it's a tough matchup, obviously he still has a ceiling in him. So yeah, I do have some interest in tournaments. For cash games, I think Amari is the first guy in.
Has to be, right? Like that 265 is going to flash in everybody's mind when they make a lineup.
Has to be. Yeah. He's in the best spot. He projects the best, in the better game environment. Yeah, it's a pretty easy click, I think. I think he'll end up being the most popular. Then you got to decide on Collins and Rice. Kind of go either way on that one. I lean towards Nico Collins just because of everything we mentioned with the weather. And Collins was great last week. Probably going to be playing from behind.
So my question for you in this range, you mentioned Collins, Cooper, and Rice, all going to be popular. I like all 3. I mean, I think the Mari, sticks out in a huge amount. I tend to probably lean more Rice, just based on the Dolphins kind of struggling against wide receiver ones. He's 6th in NFL in the targets in the last 6 weeks. And I know Mahomes hasn't been Mahomes, but man, you still give me his top wide receiver target. I kind of like that. But we talk about those 3 guys. Nico Collins was huge last week. Does this mean that nobody has Jalen Waddle at 6,500?
Yeah, I was hoping that's where you were going to go. Yeah, nobody's going to have Waddle. Like the other 3 will be, over 50% owned probably. And then Waddle will be half of that, 25 or less, which is just nothing on a 2-game slate. So again, like the Dolphins are just great tournament plays on this slate. I
was going to say the way you lay out Waddle, Tyreek, and Achane, like it seems like hitting the right Miami guy, there's going to be a right Miami guy. There's 2 games. Like they're going to score some points. Hitting the right Miami game is going to be the key here because they're all going to be under owned, including Tua, and hitting the right guys there. And the interesting with KC is like they're really good against wide receiver 1s. They have not been as good as wide receiver 2s. I think they're going to focus, take Tyreek out. I think Tyreek is going to be their game plan. They're going to try and figure out. I mean, he's the best receiver in the NFL this year. They're trying to figure out how to stop him. Waddle has 8+ targets in 5. This has 5 less healthy games. I know he left early in the other game. How healthy will he be in the cold? But I think that he's going to have some one-on-one chances to make some plays.
Yep, I agree. Hopefully the game just doesn't end like 17-10 or something.
Right. Or like 8-5 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's interesting for a 2-game slate. We've got some spots where you're going to have big name, popular, talented players who are not very highly owned. And I did not think we'd get that when I started looking at the slate, but I think with especially with Waddle, you're going to get some shots in there. And I think that if you can find of the Collins, Cooper, Rice, if you can find one that you like Waddle more than, you've got a chance for some interesting leverage there.
Mm-hmm.
Lower dollar guys. Noah Brown is 5,100. He kind of like lurking alone by himself in that range. And then you drop way down. You've got Elijah Moore is 4,000. You've got like the Kansas City guys, MVS, McCole Hardman, Justin Watson down in the 3s. You got The third Miami guy, Cedric Wilson, is, maybe if Waddle isn't fully healthy, that's an interesting spot. David Bell, but he has it for Cleveland, but he hasn't played a lot when Cooper and Moore are healthy. I kind of toss out the stats from last week there. What are you doing with cheap receivers here? Because there's not like an obvious, glaring, obvious one here.
Nope, there's not much at all.
It's probably Elijah Moore, right?
Yep, I think Elijah Moore is the best, and that's that's kind of saying how bad the cheap range is.
Yeah.
Which I think that's part of what will drive, Tyreek and Achan's ownership down a little bit, because you can make mid-range or more balanced lineups that look really good, because the punts don't look really good. Like, do you want to take a chance on one of these KC guys? I don't know.
You look at McCole Hardman. He was 6 for 77, 11 targets last week, but that was with Blaine Gabbert. That was with them not playing hard. But man, you can get lucky with MVS or Justin Watson, but I can't talk you into any of them because there's nothing to talk you into.
Right. We saw Hardman with 11 targets last week. That was without Kelsey and Rice.
Yeah. And without Mahomes, it's kind of irrelevant, but maybe they saw something there. I mean, it's not like he's been there in the past. They've used him before. He's fast, he's explosive. As long as he's active, maybe they saw something last week and they give him a try. But I mean, there's nobody else next to Rice, so why not?
Right. I really don't want to take a chance on one of these KC guys. I think Watson probably plays the most snaps. That would be my guess out of the ones not named Rice.
It's a 2-game slate. You need some luck anyway, so maybe one of them hits a big play, but you're really just, it's a Hail Mary.
Yeah, I figure that Kelsey will get more targets than usual, because it's the playoffs, and then Rice will get targets, and then Pacheco, I don't see any of these cheap guys getting more than a couple targets, but maybe that's all they need if they hit a big one. We'll have to wait on the Texans news. I think Noah Brown did return to practice, limited yesterday. Same with Robert Woods. You'd like one of those guys to sit, and then the other one might be an okay play. I don't know. Yeah, I think Moore's probably the best, though. Moore's the safest. But again, he hasn't been getting many targets either with when Cooper and Amari, when Amari and Njoku are both out there.
Yeah, I think that it's just a thing with Elijah. He just plays a lot. It seems simple, but at 4,000 indoors with a quarterback who's going to throw the ball a lot, he plays a ton of snaps when he's healthy, and I think that's kind of maybe the most important thing there. But it's a tough range. I mean, I think Cedric Wilson's the guy you could, if you wanted to kind of wing in a prayer, if Waddle gets hurt in the first quarter, can't really go in the cold. I think that he becomes the number 2 guy there pretty quickly. And, he's played 40 plus snaps the last 5 games. So it's not just a Waddle thing. He's on the field as a third receiver a lot. If I had to go someone under 4,000, I don't want to play Elijah. Maybe I'm playing Flacco Cooper and Njoku. And I'm I don't want another guy. I'd probably move to Cedric Wilson at 3,800 if I had to pick someone in this low range. Yeah, I think that's a good call. I mean, every game, one of the Dolphins wide receivers goes in the tent, so it's every single game, if not both. Yeah, right. So yeah, Cedric Wilson's always out there. Tight end is weirdly stacked in this 2-game slate. We've got, it's weird. The tight ends are so much better on this slate than the other one. But Travis Kelce, 6,100 on DraftKings, 7,200 on Fanduel. David Njoku, 5,600 on DraftKings, 7,000 on Fanduel. And you got Dalton Schultz down here too, 4,400 on DraftKings. He's 5,900 on Fanduel. And then you've also got a punt option. Durham Smythe at 3,000, 56, 54, and 30 yards the last 3 weeks. That is not a horrible punt option at 3,000. Hasn't scored all year, so maybe he's due. But are you, I guess the question is, are you playing Kelce or Njoku? If you're picking between the two, do you have a preference? My preference is for Njoku, but I do like Kelce more than most weeks here. I mean, he's got I got a pretty big Kelce vibe this week. Yeah, I kind of do too. And he's at a crazy discount. I mean, he hadn't been priced under 7,000 all season, and now he's all the way down to 61. I mean, he's just on a 2-game slate too. It's kind of wild. Yeah. Skipped the whole 6K range. I believe, Kelce has 90 plus receiving yards in 10 straight playoff games or something. He hasn't been doing that this season.
But I don't know. I kind of feel like he'll be more involved in the game plan, especially with the weather. I feel like they're going to want to get him a lot of shorter looks and see what he can do with them.
And no one wants to tackle Travis Kelce in the cold, right?
Another good point. Yeah. So I do have some interesting Kelce here. Definitely interested in Njoku. He's been great.
Do you have any issues with the Kelce and Njoku lineups?
No, I think double tight end is great on this slate. Yeah,
I do too. And with the mid-range receivers, I think there's so many options in there. It wouldn't be as popular as it would be if there weren't all those mid-range receivers. I think Kelce and Njoku is really, really interesting.
Yeah, me too. I even think you could use Dalton Schultz, just because we just talked about how the punt wide receivers aren't good at all. So why not use a tight end instead? But yeah, Njoku, I mean, he's turned into a star since Flacco became the starter. At least 6 catches in 4 straight, 4 touchdowns, over 20 fantasy points in 3 of the last 4. And I mean, we've seen
great matchup too. Like this fits perfectly for what he does.
Great matchup. Yeah. I mean, we've seen him over 100 yards twice. I mean, he's got a big ceiling now.
Yeah, I think it's a fun tight end slate. You mentioned Schultz back last week with CJ Stroud, 7 targets. Like he's been over 40 yards 3 of the last 4. Like he's not huge, but he's always involved. You can see him catching a touchdown. It's interesting. I didn't think we get 4 usable tight ends. I don't know. Usable, it might be a little bit tough with Smythe, but guys you can talk yourself into are guys that work salary wise. It's kind of interesting that such a good tight end slate. Real quick before we get to Sunday, defenses. You have a strong preference here. It feels like people will play Cleveland or Houston. Cleveland's 3,300, Houston's 3,000. KC and Miami are 29 and 28 respectively on DraftKings. Tell me who your preference is. They're all kind of the same price range. Who are you going to play?
Yeah, I actually think Chiefs are going to end up the most popular.
All right. I wouldn't have guessed that.
People are just going to see that total dropping, the weather there, and the Dolphins with the lowest implied total on the other side. I think you're going to want people, or you're going to see people just wanting to stack the Cleveland-Houston game. But, the difference in popularity is not going to be crazy between the Chiefs, Texans, and Browns. I do think the Chiefs will be highest, but yeah, I have some interest in the Browns. Always do with Myles Garrett, especially on a small slate. And it's not just Myles Garrett. Their defense is good overall. But yeah, I think the Chiefs for cash games is who I have right now. They fit perfectly in a lineup I'm looking at.
I like Cleveland and Houston more than both the other defenses. I think if the weather hits, there's going to be a lot of runs, a lot of running the clock, a lot of low score, and low score doesn't always mean great things for the fantasy defenses. I just I think that I think both Cleveland and Houston make more sense to me. Cleveland has multiple sacks in 5 straight. We don't need to talk about the Cleveland defense. It's awesome. They're really good. They'll go after the quarterback. You mentioned Myles Garrett. I think they're gonna make things a little sketchy for CJ Stroud. But then Houston, it's Joe Flacco. I know he's been great, but he has interceptions in all of those 5 games. He has 8 picks in those 5 games. The stats have been great, fantasy-wise, DraftKings, Fanduel, all the stuff that we talked about makes sense for fantasy stats, but he has been turning the ball over. Houston's really had some big sack games in there. They don't always get them, but man, both Grenard, I think it's Grenard. I always mispronounce his name. And Will Anderson practiced on Thursday. I think they're both going to play. If Houston's the lowest rostered in this group, I really like them. I think that they're going to. Who knows if they make the plays, but Flacco's going to give them 2 or 3 chances to make big plays. And a slate like this, one big play on defense might make a huge difference.
Yeah, you make a lot of great points. I don't think they'll be the lowest. I think the Dolphins will be the lowest.
Right. Yeah.
But still,
no one play Miami. You're right.
A lot of great points.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's jump into Sunday. I think Sunday's got the higher total games. I'm kind of glad that both high total games are on Sunday. It makes it a little more interesting. If one had been on each day, I think it would have been 2 obvious to stack games. But first, a note from our sponsors at Fanduel. Tackle millions in prizes all playoffs long in Fanduel fantasy contests. If you're new to fantasy, there's no better time to get in the action because right now, new customers get a 100% deposit match up to $100. Playing fantasy for huge class prizes on Fanduel is fun and exciting. Just draft your lineup and watch your team move up the leaderboard. as we talked earlier, FanDuel's interesting at quarterback on the Saturday slate. Mahomes and Flacco are so much closer price than other slates that it makes Mahomes a little more interesting, I think, there. Plus, on FanDuel, you can choose from full slate contests featuring multiple games, single game contests, single season-long best ball contests, beginner-only contests, which are all great for learning the ropes and more. And when you win, you get paid instantly. Could kick off fantasy season 100% deposit match up to $100. Go to FanDuel.com to start playing for huge cash prizes today. So, Ryan, we get the Sunday slate. We've got Pittsburgh at Buffalo. Buffalo's biggest favorite of the weekend in the lowest total of the weekend. It is a wild. You don't usually get that big of a spread difference with that low of a total. The implied total of this game is Buffalo 23, Pittsburgh 13. It's a 35.5 point over/under. Buffalo's favored by 10. Gabe Davis just ruled out, by the way, about 5 minutes ago. So, I'm keeping everybody on their toes here. I got breaking news coming up, so that opens up some other options for Buffalo. Green Bay and Dallas, your Packers headed to Jerry World. Dallas favored by 7, over under there 50.5, big number for this season. And then Rams and Lions, the Matthew Stafford goes back to Detroit game. Detroit's first home playoff game since 1993, which seems almost impossible. You say it out loud. They haven't a home playoff game in 30 years. They haven't won a playoff game, road, away, neutral site, anything since 1991. Longest drought in all of sports, not the NFL, but all 4 sports to win a playoff game. It's been 33 years since a playoff win. That is a crazy stat. Detroit favored by 3, over under 51.5. Everybody in the world loves the Rams this week. What do you think about the slate? Because I think these 2 NFC games are a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch them. For DFS, I think it makes things very tough.
It does.
We didn't have many 50-point totals all season, and now we have 2 of them on a 3-game slate.
with the other one in the mid-30s too. It's a crazy setup.
Mid-30s, and the other one includes, Josh Allen and a bunch of underpriced Bills who normally would be popular, but
and potentially snow and 30-mile-an-hour winds, by the way.
Yeah, so that's a good segue. I think the weather and that total, and it's going to keep people off that game and off the Bills in general. And then people will, try to decide which of those other 2 games is going to shoot out. Maybe try to pick pieces from both. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I think it's probably a better idea to focus on one of them and maybe hope the other one goes under.
In a 3-game slate, that makes a lot of sense. Percentage wise, we've got 5 quarterbacks. I think we just kind of cross Mason Rudolph off. Are you good with that?
I'm good with that.
I mean, they have the implied total of 13. It's going to be bad weather. Like, if you want to play Mason Rudolph for a wing and a prayer, good luck, but I don't even think that's worth that.
Don't do it.
Do you, among the other quarterbacks, who's going to be, do you have is there a clear outstanding who's going to be more popular? I feel like all those other 5 quarterbacks are kind of in play, but I was curious what you're seeing percentage-wise on those guys.
I think Dak is going to be the most popular, but not by a lot. And I think Josh Allen might be near the bottom. And then you'll have the guys in the 6K range, probably Goff, the second most popular, just because he's cheaper and the Lions are home favorites. And so he'll project a little better. So I think it will be Dak the most popular and Goff second would be my guess.
I was hoping you say Goff a little bit lower because I do really like them this week. Who do you think? Do you think Green Bay hangs in this game? You're the Packers fan. Give me your thoughts on how you think this game kind of plays out. Yeah,
I could see it going either way. The argument for them hanging in there is Jordan Love's been really good lately.
Yep.
The defense has been playing better. His pass catchers are healthy. Aaron Jones is healthy. They've been scoring points, so they could stay around. And, it's Dallas, you're never quite sure what you're going to get. I mean, they're never a sure thing, even when you think they might be.
Yeah, I think they're really good too. But yeah, I can't lie to you and tell you it doesn't stick in my head like what they've done the last few years early in the playoffs. Man, I think they're really good. I think they are the legit worry for I think the Rams and then Dallas are both really good, but I think Dallas is the real the team that can go in San Francisco and win that game. I was actually hoping that Niners were going to win last week late in that game because I wanted Dallas and the Rams to play each other in week 1. I think that would have been best for everybody involved, but it didn't work out that way. Green Bay's fascinating to me. They won 6 of their last 8 to get in the playoffs. Jordan Love is passed the stat test, the eye test, everything there. Man, Dallas is insane at home. The only team in the NFL didn't lose a game at home all year. Outscored teams by 21.5 points in their 8 home games, which is an insane stat in the modern day NFL. I'm hoping Green Bay hangs. I think the way they hang is kind of a shootout, though. They've got to find a way to get points. They've got good weapons. I don't think that there's any way Dallas doesn't score. Green Bay's defense is not very good. Sorry to say that. I know that you already know that, but they've been a little better hanging in games, but they have not played well most of this year. I think the only way to hang for Green Bay is just to score probably 27 points, something like that.
Yep, I think you nailed it. I really like Dallas too. Their offense has been great this season. I don't think the Packers are going to be able to stop them. They'll need a fortunate break or two, interception, fumble, that kind of stuff. I think
Dak would never do that in a big game. Stop.
That's what I'm talking about. You never know.
You never know. Are you like everybody else in the entire world that thinks the Rams are winning this game?
I'm kind of disappointed to hear that because I don't necessarily have a strong take, but I would lean Rams. Yeah, I just think I like how Stafford's been playing. I think he's the better quarterback, and sort of when I'm torn, I side with the quarterback that I like better. All other things being equal, which I think they kind of are. But
they were 3-6 going into their bye. The Rams. They've won 7 of 8, and the only loss in there was a walk-off punt return at Baltimore, who I think we can say is the best team in the NFL. Like, I think as a Niners fan, I can admit that they beat us head-to-head. DVOA, all the stats. That's their only loss the last 2 months is a walk-off punt return on the road in Baltimore.
Wow, I didn't realize that. What a run.
It's a crazy run. I mean, they were 3-6, so now they end up 10-7.
No one really had them doing anything this season. I mean, Stafford is just he's
always
been underrated.
At 3-6, there was talk out here that they were like going for a draft pick. Like they're gonna get one of the high draft picks, and you have to think about whether you want to draft a quarterback. It's crazy how fast it swung. I don't think they were ever gonna be nearly that bad, but man, they have turned it up in a huge way to finish. They finished 10-7. I'm doing the math right. Yeah, they finished 10-7. They averaged 6.8 yards per play with their 4 studs on the field: Stafford, Nakua, Kupp, and Kyren Williams. Like with those 4 guys in the field, they are a nasty, nasty offense.
They are. You can see why this total is over 50. I was just gonna, try to convince myself maybe this game goes under, but it's hard. You said it. The offense is so good. Detroit's offense too at home. They've been pretty good too. You can see this game going back and forth. I mean, games at Ford Field seem to shoot out quite a bit. I mean, you have each quarterback going against their former team.
You feel bad for Lions fans, right? Like you get your first home win in 30 years, and the guy that you love is coming in on the other side. Like that sucks. Like I get it.
I never thought of it that way, but yeah.
I mean, I game there 30 years, and you got to go and root against. Like they love Matthew Stafford. He didn't leave on bad terms. Like I think it kind of just made sense for both of them, and kind of worked out for both teams. I love this game. This is like my favorite game of the weekend by far. I cannot wait to sit down and watch this game. I'm against everybody else. I said all that about the Rams. I think the Lions are going to win this game. I think that Lions are really good at home. Lions lead the NFL with scoring TDs on 35% of their possessions, led the NFL in home touchdown percentage. I just think the Rams defense is the issue here. They're 22nd in DVOA. I think Detroit's going to get after them. They have a good game plan. They have great weapons. I think this game is going to shoot out, but I think the Lions get it done at the end. But I think we're looking at like a 38-34. I think it's going to be a shootout game.
Yeah, I kind of think you're right. It's going to bury all of my playoff best ball teams because
do you have none of either?
Well, you couldn't really get any of them if you wanted to. You have to plan for the Super Bowl. So if you wanted to get like 49ers or Ravens or Bills or Cowboys, you had to take them early when other people were taking, the Rams and the Lions, who look really good this week. And, you're going to look really good to advance out of the first round. But
yeah, the winner either goes to play at San Francisco or at Dallas.
Right. So naturally I didn't end up with a lot of those players. So I sort of need a miracle to advance from round 1. And then my teams are stacked for the rest of the way. So
how many teams are drafting in those leagues? Like 12-teamer?
6.
So 6. Okay.
And you roster 6 players. 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, tight
You're
end.
obviously stacking the crap out of teams then, right? Trying to at least.
Yes.
It's the only way to win.
Yeah. The goal is to get be able to make a full lineup come Super Bowl.
But you obviously get no stats from Niners and Ravens this week at all.
Exactly. That's what makes it so tough. So, you have 49er stacks right now. You're relying on guys like, Chris Godwin and Jaden Reed to like pull it out for you this week, so it's interesting.
That is pretty fascinating. Now, I'll play a couple playoff contests. I didn't do any best ball ones, but I will play in a couple that I actually think it's a fun setup. The NFFC has a contest that's really fun, like multipliers. You have to pick who wins essentially to do well by the end, but it's kind of a fun setup. You have to make some tough decisions. So let's get into the quarterbacks here. We got Josh Allen 8,000. We haven't even really talked about that game. I think he's going to probably be really under rostered this week. Dak 7,600 on Draftkings. Stafford 65, Love 63, Jared Goff 62. So there's a pretty big difference between Allen and Goff. The differences are a little bit less on FanDuel. Goff is more expensive than Love and Stafford on FanDuel, right? But below Dak and Allen are still much higher. I'm leaning Goff of this mix just based on how I think this game works out. I wouldn't argue against Stafford either. It's hard to argue against Dak. Green Bay's at 26th in DVOA against the pass. Like, if Dak wants to eat, I think they're going to eat. So is CD. How do you pick quarterback out of this group? Because there's five very playable guys.
Yeah, I think from a cash game optimal sense, you go Goff or Dak. They project the best and they're going to be the most popular. So if you can get up to that expensive range, Dak has the highest ceiling, but Goff projects as maybe a better value, being all the way down to 6,200. For tournaments, I'm going to switch it up. I definitely have some interest in Stafford. I think I might play some Jordan Love, just because they're going to be, I think, considerably, like maybe half as popular as Dak and Goff. And then Josh Allen.
And what doesn't get credit? LaFleur is a really, really good coach.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets mentioned with the top guys. Like, he turned the season around really well. He's turned Jordan Love around. He's really good, and I think he's going to go in with a really good – I mean, I don't know if they have enough talent to win this game, but LaFleur's going to know how to attack this game. They're going to have to score. I think he knows that. I think he knows they're not going to stop Dallas. I think they come out aggressive. I think that's going to be and if they get behind, that's great for Love too. I think in a tournament, Love makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. About LaFleur too. In Wisconsin and in Green Bay, I'm not sure the majority of the people think like that. I think he gets I don't know. I think people weren't too happy with him, and I'm on the other side of that. I think he did a pretty good job. I think he
don't let him go.
No, I agree. Anyways, yeah, I have some interest in Love for tournaments and also Stafford. Josh Allen's the interesting one.
Yeah. Is he fifth most popular in this group?
Yeah, I think fifth most popular. And then
that's wild for a 3-game slate.
And then Diggs just will be, way down the list. Do
you think no Gabe Davis bumps him up that list a bunch, a little?
Not a little,
Okay.
but I think he's going to be less popular than CD, Amon-Ra, Kupp, Puka. So like all of them. So, I know that these other 2 games look so good and the Bills game has a 35 total or whatever, but just from an ownership perspective, it might be worth taking a chance on. The slate's tough. I haven't even figured out what I'm going to do yet, but that's interesting.
Makes me want to throw one Allen Diggs lineup in there though.
Yeah, Diggs down all the way down.
It might be done by 11:30 Pacific time when I'm watching games. But man, if they throw 2 touchdowns in the first half, you're like, man, I got a lead here. I'm gonna hope for some carnage in the later games and hope they don't shoot out quite as much to do. But you could play Allen Diggs and then a couple of pieces in the other games. Just hope you hit those pieces right.
Yep.
Yeah. Running back, there's no expensive guys. Super expensive. Kyron Williams is the most expensive on Draftkings 7,300. He's 9,000 on FanDuel. He is pretty high there. But we've got Kyron Williams 7,300, James Cook 66, Jahmyr Gibbs 65, Aaron Jones 63, and Tony Pollard 61. We'll get to the Pittsburgh guys in a second after that. But that's and David Montgomery's in there too. He's 6,200. But that's like 6 guys. I'm going to call them in the same range from 61 to 73. What do you do to kind of figure out the right guy on this slate?
I think Pollard will end up being the most popular.
That's kind of who I like the most too.
It makes sense. He's all the way down to 6,100 for some reason. And
because he's bad all year.
Yeah, but he would have been like kind of popular in this spot if he was 66, 6,700.
Yeah,
so he's kind of at a discount. The Cowboys have the highest implied total and nice home matchup, against a not great defense. So I think you start with Pollard. And then I think the decision after that is between Kyren and Aaron Jones. At least that's my decision from a cash game sense, and just looking at who's going to be the most popular. I think the three most popular backs will be Pollard, Kyren, and Aaron Jones. And then, Gibbs might creep up there too. And then after that, all the other guys will be kind of considerably less popular. So I think there's some interesting.
You think James Cook is pretty unpopular then?
Yeah, I wouldn't say unpopular. Let's say those other guys I mentioned are around 40%. Cook maybe 25.
Okay. That's a pretty big drop for the team that is the biggest favorite, and as a running back, you hope that second half they're running him a lot. But he has a quiet couple of weeks after a really good run. But I think that's an interesting one. The interesting one to me is Kyren, because he's been with C-Mac maybe the best running back like the last month and a half, 2 months in the NFL. If you look at his last three games, 152, 104, 87. But the 87 game he had 3 touchdowns. But Detroit's the number 1 rush team in the NFL by DVOA. Like this is a tough matchup. They stop the run really well. They're really tough up front. Kyron's been awesome, and he catches the ball in the backfield. It's just one of those things where you probably get the best guy in the slate, but going against the best of the 6 run defenses in the slate.
Yep. You're right. He succeeded in like every matchup.
Everything, right? I remember that Baltimore game where like you can't play in Baltimore, right? But he looked awesome in that game.
I just went to check that out. He rushed for 114 against them on 25 carries and 3 catches. He did well against Cleveland as well. But I hear you. Yeah, it's a tough matchup.
It is, but I don't want to say Kyren Williams is matchup proof, but man, he's getting pretty darn close to that.
He is. I agree. Yeah, he's not like crazy expensive at 73. Do think Cook is a little bit interesting though, because he's not going to be popular. Like what it is so many people are married to projections these days. And because of the other 2 games have 50-point totals, the running backs in those games just project so well. And on the other side of that, the running back in a game with a 35-point total that, has blowout potential is not going to project well. So it's just going to mean that, Cook's ownership will stay down to 20% range, which
I like that as a play on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure.
The Detroit guys are tough. Gibbs 6,500 on DraftKings, Montgomery 62. They're both in the mid 7s on Fanduel. They just split carry so much. It's like you're just kind of hoping for the touchdown from Montgomery or hoping the big play from Gibbs. If I had to pick one, I'd probably lean Gibbs. I think the explosiveness there and the ceiling's higher, but Montgomery might score 2 short touchdowns and then blows out of the water. They're just hard to figure, and I'm not sure there's a way to really figure them. And based on the game, it's gonna be a close, high-scoring game. I'm not sure that really affects anything. If Detroit was favored by a bunch, maybe I'd lead Montgomery. If they were an underdog, maybe I'd lead Gibbs. But in the middle, I don't know. I think you're kind of just picking and choosing at this point.
Yeah, I think you broke it down perfectly. I side with Gibbs because he at least has some receiving upside. Can score long touchdowns. But
let's talk about the cheaper guys here. There aren't a lot, but the main ones are the Pittsburgh guys. And Najee Harris, I'm not sure if you've seen, over 100 yards last 2 weeks. He's back from the dead. Rough game script. They're 10-point underdogs, but if Pittsburgh is going to have any shot in this game, the way to do it is get some weather, run the ball, hope for Josh Allen to turn the ball over a couple times, which he has definitely done. Bills allowed 4.6 yards per carry against the run. I know they've been better lately on defense, but their run defense is kind of the way to get them. Najee had 5 targets last week. Have I done anything to talk you into Najee Harris, or still not interested?
You got me to think about it.
That was kind of my goal. I just think that it probably doesn't. And if Buffalo gets up early, like it's dead. But I mean, it has to be Tomlin's game plan as to if they have a chance to get this game, it's Najee Harris getting 18 to 22 touches, carries, using Jalen Warren in the pass game, a couple big plays to Pickens or Deontay where guys miss tackles and, maybe someone slips in the snow, and that's the way you do it. But I mean, the way the game plan works out is that if they're going to hang it all, Najee has to play well. So does Jalen Warren. I'm just not sure they can hang in there, but that's the game plan at least.
Yeah, I'm warming to it. I'm at least considering it. I mean, he could, right? He could rush for 100 yards and a touchdown. Pretty much no running back got more disrespect than Najee before the season, throughout the season.
Yeah,
and
me included, by the way. I had no interest in drafting him either.
It's good to see him with 2 massive 100-yard games in a row, even catching some passes recently. I don't know. I wasn't planning on it until you brought it up, but I don't think it's the worst idea just because of his price. It allows you to afford, a different kind of lineup maybe.
Yeah, you probably could play an extra receiver, which people aren't going to be able to do, which is, it can be interesting because there's some really good receivers in the slate. Lastly, anything in the 4,000 at running back in a slate this small, do you like play Rico Dowdle and hope Pollard gets banged up or something like that? I don't usually do that kind of stuff. Leonard Fournette's down here. I wouldn't touch that. You might have a 1-yard touchdown, but I don't want any part of that. I'm not playing anyone under Jalen Warren, who's 5,100, who I consider. I'm not even playing. I'm sure I'm playing Warren. Well, he has 26 targets the last 5 weeks. He has over 4 targets each of those weeks. Interesting piece if they get behind. I think that you could play. I think Warren could be interesting if they do get behind and the 10-point underdogs. But under that, I'm not messing with if someone gets hurt, I can get this guy. That's not the way I play these slates.
No, me either. I do have some interest in Warren though. Yeah. He could catch. Why can't he catch 7 or 8 passes? They're down double digits the whole game or something.
Yeah. His targets last 5 weeks are 5, 6, 6, 4, and 5. Even when Najee's playing well, Warren's been getting a lot of targets. Someone in that game is gonna work out. I don't know who it is, but someone in the game is gonna work out. Receivers. We've kind of talked kind of all the games here, but CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, 9,000 for Lamb on DraftKings. Amon-Ra's 8,000. Kupp 7,500. Puka 72. Diggs 74. I'll stop there because that's kind of the 5 expensive guys. As you build lineups, how many of these 5 are you playing? Who do you prefer? But most importantly, can you play 2 of these? You can't play 3 of them, probably. I assume you try and get 2 of them in?
Yeah, you definitely can't play 3 of them.
Yeah.
Try to get 2 of them in. It's tough to play the top 2 if you want to play CeeDee and Amon-Ra.
Yeah, I couldn't find my way doing that.
So
most of my lineups, I figured I was playing Amon-Ra on one of the Rams.
Yeah, so me too. I made 1 lineup so far, but I found it tough because I think CeeDee is the best option, but he's also 9,000.
Yeah. Man, since they came out of that bye, they clearly decided they were going to just feed him.
It's worked too. I'm trying to think, should I or put any stock into Jair Alexander being back? Maybe you can tell yourself a story that CeeDee doesn't go nuts in this spot.
If I am LaFleur, I do everything possible to make someone besides them beat me and accept that if it happens, it happens. And maybe it does. You maybe overcompensate for him and other guys beat you. But the way that Dallas has played the last 8 weeks, 10 weeks, I'd game plan against CeeDee and make someone else beat me. If they did, I'd tip my cap to him.
Yeah, I would too. And, maybe that
and I get that's not as easy as it sounds. I do fully understand that, but I would certainly it would be my focus.
Yeah, me too. And it makes me not want to, but I'm okay with fading Lamb in tournaments just because you can fit 2 of these other guys in. Do
you think Laporta is going to play for Detroit?
That's what I was going to. Yeah, it kind of seems like it. I don't know, just from what I read.
Right? It seems kind of crazy, but I think it seems like he's going to play too. I think that I think he's going to play. I don't know how good he'll be or how active he'll be. I think he'll play, but that affects. If he doesn't play, Amon-Ra's target monster even more than normal. But I think he's going to play. But I think I still really like Amon-Ra this week. I just love that. I just love that game. I
did like St. Brown, more before Laporta. I got this Laporta news. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. Still like him either way, but I don't know, Scott. I'm having trouble. I kind of just like all these guys. I'm not sure. Do you like one better than the rest for sure?
You're talking in this range or just the Rams guys?
No, sorry, all the expensive guys.
I am at I wouldn't argue against any of them, but I'm at Amon-Ra and then one of the Rams. I think I'm going to go with Puka Nacua, a little bit cheaper. They played 11 games together. Nacua had more yards in 7 of those 11. I think he's got the more ceiling, believe it or not. I think that Kupp is will get a lot of targets and catches, but I think Nacua is kind of the bigger play guy. Great matchup too. Detroit allowed the third most yards and touchdowns to wide receivers. Like this is a great matchup for the Rams. You can play either one. Is there an ownership difference between the two? Are they pretty much the same, or is a lot of people playing Nakua over Cup?
Yeah, I think Nakua will be more popular, but not too
close
much.
enough that pick the one you like more and go with it.
Yeah, okay. I think so. I think CD and St. Brown will be the two most popular, and then Puka after that, and then Cup somewhere after that. But yeah,
and Diggs way after that.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you do? What do you do in the mid range? I think that there's going to be some Jaden Reed interest at 5,700 on DraftKings at Dallas for the Packers. There, really good last couple of weeks. They're still banged up at receiver. Is Christian Watson going to play? I can't really figure it out. I even read the news yesterday to prepare for this, and I still can't figure it out. It seems like he's still pretty questionable.
I'm kind of just gonna ignore it either way. Like one of those things where if he's active, I don't know, he plays 10 snaps or something, it could be something like that. I would like Jaden Reed either way. Been so impressed with Reed.
Yeah.
Every time I watch him, to be honest, wasn't sure necessarily how good he was when we drafted him or at the start of the season when he was getting a lot of opportunities, but he's proved it over these last couple weeks. He's really talented. He's clearly Green Bay's top option. So I do have some interest there.
Anybody else in this range? I mean, Gabe Davis is out now, but you've got Romeo Dobbs, I can't do it, 5,400, George Pickens and Deontay Johnson in low fives. They're not that cheap. Like it's hard to even get there. Like one of them could hit a big play. I think we saw Deontay hit the big play last week, but I mean, you could say like they're going to be losing and maybe the weather holds off and one of them hits a big play, but if they were in the 4,000s maybe, but I'm having a hard time finding myself getting behind anybody in the 5,000s aside from Reed.
I'm with you. Especially there's multiple options in the 3K range that you can
there
play,
really are. There's way better options at 3K in this slate than there are on the other one. Let's get there. We've just under 5,000 in general. We got Brandon Cooks at 4,900. I think he makes a lot of sense. If you think that, like we do, Green Bay focuses on Lamb, maybe he makes some plays, but he's been good the second half. Christian Watson, 4,500. If he plays, sure, go for it. But then the 3,000 is interesting. Josh Reynolds down here at 3,800. That I'm going to like Jameson Williams down here at 3,500. 16 targets last week. He's playing a lot more. Upside is through the roof. In a playoff game, like the reins are off Jameson Williams. Like he's going to play as many snaps as he wants. Demarcus Robinson, 3,600 down here. We talked about this Rams-Lions game. 16 targets last 2 weeks. He played with Stafford, 82 and 92 yards in those games. Khalil Shakir now with Gabe Davis out. He's 3,400. Becomes Buffalo's second wide receiver. I can't believe how many options there are at 3,000s on a 3-game slate.
I can't either. It's completely opposite to the other slate.
It is.
And the three that you mentioned are all like good options. And I'm talking about,
they're not like punt short slate options. Like they're actually like, I'd consider that those guys in a full slate.
Yeah, for sure. Like Demarcus Robinson, you mentioned he'll be popular, 6 catches in back-to-back games, a lot of targets. Jameson Williams, I'm with you. Love him. Ton of upside here. And then Khalil Shakir, now that Gabe Davis is out. Conditions, don't really matter too much when you're 3,400. Buffalo still have a high implied total. And Shakir's a guy who runs all types of routes. He catches short passes and deep balls. So, yeah, really like Shakir.
Hell, Josh Reynolds had 7 targets last week.
Yeah, Reynolds is there too. Like the Laporta news, I think, impacts those secondary Lions.
Agreed.
Quite a bit.
If he doesn't play, like Reynolds and Jameson go up even more, right?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, Khalil Shakir had 6 for 105 last week.
Yeah, right.
With Gabe Davis playing the first quarter and a half of that game.
Yeah, so they're all good plays, right? I guess if you want me to try to give a take, if Robinson's going to be the most popular, I'd be worried, with him as the clear third option behind Kupp and Puka, that maybe targets get a little more condensed in the playoffs to those guys. But again, I'm just, trying to poke some holes. I like the upside of Jameson Williams. I like the upside of Shakir. I don't know. They're all good options.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that there's this many good options. I was just trying to figure out if you try and play two of these guys, how easy it is to get Lamb and Amon-Ra in. I'm just playing with some math here. If you play Lamb, Amon-Ra, and then I just picked Jameson Shakir just to put two guys in the lineup, you have 5,200 left for the rest of the lineup. You still get defense in there that's cheap in the 3,000s. You've got 6,000. Like you can actually build a Lamb, Amon-Ra lineup as long as you go cheap at tight end.
Yeah, you can do it. And you can actually even do it with Ferguson at tight end.
Yeah, I guess I was saying, I guess I just meant like not Laporta is what I meant.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe these punt options being good will lead people. I think it probably will lead people to CD and Amon-Ra lineups, at least in cash games from what it looks like. Because you can easily fit Pollard. You can fit another 6K back.
I put Pollard and Jones in. I still got Goffin.
Yep. So, yeah, I think you're right. That might end up being a popular construction.
Draftkings asked me if I wanted to save that lineup. I did not want to save that lineup. I was just playing with it. But tight ends, it's weird. The other one had interesting ones. This one's tougher. I mean, Laporta's 6,000, but we don't know if he's going to play. We don't know if he's healthy, but he does play. I don't think I'm going to pay up for it, even if he plays. I don't think I trust. I think there's other options I like in kind of all over the place here. But you want to play him, and he looks to go. Obviously, he's the best guy on the slate. But Ferguson's 4,700, Kincaid is 46. I think both are very, very playable. Kincaid's coming on as of late. His last 15 targets the last 2 weeks. His two best yardage gains have been the last 2 weeks. I wrote in here, Gabe Davis might not be 100%. Gabe Davis is not playing. I think that impacts Kincaid maybe more than anybody on this team. I think that the targets are pretty much locked in for him this week. I really like him at 4,600. And then I'm hoping you can help me here on the lower ones because they're both Green Bay guys. Tucker Kraft, 3,300. Luke Musgrave sounds like he's going to play 3,200. Do you think those guys are usable at all?
I don't like both of them being active.
Right, it kind of hurts both. It kind of hurts both of them, right?
It really does. Yeah. Makes me just want to use Ferguson or Kincaid on like every lineup. I think with this slate, I think that's where I'm at. I think I'm Ferguson or Kincaid pretty much across the board. Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry, I was just looking up the Packers snap counts. Musgrave did play last week.
Okay. I knew he was like with that window to come back, so he did play.
Right. Okay. But he played only 15% of snaps. Tucker Kraft got 90% of snaps. Yeah, so I think you can expect Tucker Kraft to continue as the main tight end. He's actually looked pretty good. He can catch the ball. He can run routes.
Good in the run game too, right? Good blocker.
Yeah. He's a pretty good player. And I mean, makes sense. I believe we drafted him in the 3rd round, but
Green Bay found a lot of guys in the draft this year.
Yeah, they did. We needed it too. Yeah, it was really good
between
draft
him and Jaden Reed and Wicks. Like that's pretty good for like none of those are top first couple round picks.
Right, and all contribute in the playoffs. You're right. Yeah. None of them were first or second. Yeah, that's really good. So this slate is this slate is much different than the last one with tight end. Like you said, and it really makes Ferguson's going to stick out from a cash perspective. I think he'll probably be over 50% owned. Wow. Although
I like Kincaid more.
I do too. Now that Davis is out.
Yeah. But I think Ferguson's obviously in the team with a ton of points, high total game. I get it, but I like Kincaid. I mean, I only see the weather. I want to make sure it's not insane, but I think I like Kincaid a little more.
I do too. Yeah. I think the weather was going to push people the other way, but now that Davis got ruled out, it'll bring some people back to Kincaid. But yeah, you mentioned it. He's looked like Josh Allen's favorite target at times. He's he seems to be like a main reason why Diggs, hasn't been having as many big games. And yeah, with Davis out, I don't know. I always see Allen wanting to throw to the tight ends. And in a game like this, I think he's going to want to even more. So yeah.
You just have to hope on the 5-yard line he throws to Kincaid instead of Dawson Knox, because that'll be annoying.
Yeah. Dawson Knox, you could play Dawson Knox in tournaments, but
he can catch touchdown. They look at him in the red zone.
Yeah.
Real quick, before we jump out, defense. It seems like a defense is a little tougher for me on this one. There are a little more expensive ones. The Bills are 3,500. The Cowboys are 3,600. Do you you have a preference on defense this week? Are you remotely interested in Pittsburgh at 2,600 with the thought that bad weather and Josh Allen might be a bad combo?
Yeah, I could play Pittsburgh. Yeah. I think the Bills are the best if you can get there at 3,500. I mean, obviously the Steelers have a 13-point implied total or whatever.
Yeah. Like Mason Rudolph's going to do some dumb stuff in this game, right?
Yeah, you would think so.
If they get behind, he can't just hand it off 1,000 times. He's going to do some dumb stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if they're down 14 at half, Bills are going to have a lot of opportunities for sacks and interceptions.
Yep.
And then, yeah, like you said, I could play the Steelers for 2,600 just because, it's a tough environment. We've targeted these bad defenses against Josh Allen before. It doesn't always work out, but he's been known to throw some interceptions and do some questionable things. So, yeah, I think that's fine too. But other than that, I don't have strong takes on the other games.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because we talked about how much we like the offense in the other games. It's hard to get there. I think that you can make an argument for Dallas. Jordan Love, first playoff game, maybe he makes some mistakes, but they're 3,600. If I did that, I would just play Buffalo for $100 less. So it's hard for me to get to Dallas. I don't want to play Lions or Rams, to be honest. I think that game's going to shoot out, as I mentioned earlier. I don't love Green Bay's defense. Sorry to say to you. And indoors against Dallas, I'm just not doing that. For me, it's I either pay for the Bills or I punt down to Pittsburgh. And I don't think I'm touching the other four defenses, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. I guess the one thing I'll throw out, I'm not going to do it. You briefly brought it up. The Cowboys are the same price, and they're going to be about 10% owned, maybe less, while the Bills are going to be in the 40s.
So my argument for the Bills is probably a reason in a tournament you play Dallas.
Yeah, and Dallas has Micah Parsons, and they have that guy who ran back like 6 pick sixes this year or whatever. So it could happen.
I can't think of the guy's name now.
I can't either.
That drives me nuts. I'm supposed to know the answer to that question. Deron Bland.
Yeah, there. Deron Bland.
I kept thinking Trayvon Diggs, and I knew it was not him. Anything else in your mind before we jump out of here? Any your Rams is your one upset pick? It sounds like if I'm listening to it. Or best chance at an upset. I'll make you stick with that.
Yeah, I will pick Rams. I'm
going Miami as my best chance for an upset. I think that game.
That's the other one I was going to say.
I think that game's going to get a little squirrely for the Chiefs.
That's the other one I was going to say. I kind of like Miami. Kansas City. Yeah, no, I like Miami. Kansas City struggled all season. I think this.
Does Green Bay cover the spread? If I can get 7.5, I'm taking Green Bay.
Okay, I'll say yes then.
Yeah, I think that's I think it'll be right around there though. But I think a late touchdown. I think LaFleur is going to keep them in this game. I think Dallas wins the game. Sorry for you as a Packers fan, but I think it's going to be. I think it'll be still a game in the fourth quarter. Put it that way.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fun game. I'm looking forward. The Sunday afternoon games are both. I guess it's Sunday night for you probably, but those are fun games.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Well, thanks everybody for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. We do always appreciate that. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I'm really looking forward to this playoff weekend. Obviously, next playoff weekend will be good too with my Niners rejoining the fray, but I will enjoy a weekend of them not having to play. But thanks everybody for listening. If you want to follow Ryan on Twitter, he is at Ryan Belongia, Belongia. I am at Scott Jenstad. Luckily I'm talking mostly football these days. There's not a lot of basketball for me to talk about at the exact moment. But so if you have any questions on there, as kind of weather comes out, injuries come out, definitely let us know. Other than that, we look forward to talking divisional round with you next week. Hope everybody has a really good weekend, enjoys the games.
Thanks, Scott. Good luck.